we would get a little ding or like a
Yeah.
ka-ching sound on our phone. And it was just like, I woke up one morning and the East Coast had already been up for like 3 hours. Right. And there was all these orders and they were from the East Coast first.
Ding, ding, ding.
And I was like,
ding. Yeah.
I'm like, we had 15 orders this morning. I'm like, that's unusual, you know? And then it just kept, I refreshed my phone and it was like 10 more orders. I'm like, what's happening here?
Yeah.
It went like that for like 2 weeks. It was nuts. We sold out of pretty much everything. And I was making sauce like 5 days a week just to catch back up because the holidays were like right around the corner.
Leo here, your host of the Building Bellingham podcast, and thanks for stopping by the studio. Pour a glass of whiskey or local beer, take a sip, kick those feet up. We're going to dive into what it means to be a business owner, what it means to be a member of this Bellingham and Whatcom County community, and what it means to find peace and balance while running a badass, high-octane, local, iconic business. Let's jump in. Welcome to the studio. This is season 5, episode 6. And I would say that you are a hot sauce local legend. And now I think you're a legend in the hot sauce industry because you just won a recent award. I'm a huge fan of your hot sauces as I'm starting to spread my palate a little bit more now knowing that you have 16 different hot sauces. Mm-hmm. But tell me a little bit more about you. You know, you make incredibly flavorful hot sauce that also has the heat. Most of the time you get something that burns your face off with no flavor and vice versa. Mm-hmm. But you found this like happy medium of like all the things. So tell me a little bit more about you and your build up to this amazing business that you have going on.
Well, thanks for having me. First off, happy to be here. I started making hot sauce in the early 2000s in California, Northern California, Santa Rosa to be exact. I was, it was our first home that we owned. I planted out most of the backyard. It was like a small farm. We called it the mini farm, which is, my last name is Meany, spelled mini. So we called it the mini farm anyway. And there were probably over 50 pepper plants or so. And I just kept experimenting with different ones. And we were eating them, cooking with them, putting them on pizza. I worked at Russian River Brewing Company at the time. Okay. So I was learning how to brew beer. I was a bartender there and a manager, but I learned how to brew beer. There was a small fermentation community there that would come into the bar and we would all chat, trade notes and all that stuff. And I was just experimenting with fermentation in my kitchen at home. I was making sauerkrauts and fermenting carrots and just making pickles out of everything, fermented pickles, that is. And of course the peppers. So I made a few sauces without fermentation and I got really into the fermentation and I just loved how it unlocked all these other flavors out of your vegetables and fruits. So that's where it was all born. I was bringing those experiments into Russian River Brewing Company. A lot of the customers there had probably tried very early versions of my flagship 4 sauces. Mm-hmm. Through the years, even after working there, I just kept doing the same thing, giving them out as gifts for friends and family during the holidays. And after we moved here, I developed the skills to grow those peppers here as well in a greenhouse and cold frames.
Very different climate.
Totally.
Yeah.
But a fun challenge.
Sure.
And I know it can be done and there's plenty of growers doing it here. So I did it and continued to make the sauces, bring them into wherever I was working. I tried to start this company back in California in 2013, I think is when we filed. But I landed a pretty demanding project management job and my 3 kids were pretty small at that point. So family life was busy as well. So I wasn't able to manage the side project of a hot sauce company at that point. So I waited. It was just like kind of on the back burner, I guess.
You're thinking about stability with kids and,
totally.
Starting a business, and we'll get more into this too, is not like the most stable thing you can do.
No, it's scary.
Yeah.
It's super scary. So when we moved, our house foreclosed in like 2009. And by the time we had recovered, we missed the boat on the low-priced homes in Northern California, and things started to climb again. So we had gotten pre-approved, and the neighborhoods we were looking in were not the kind of neighborhoods we wanted to live in. Mm-hmm. We like to have chickens and have a big veggie garden and stuff, and we were going to have a shoebox of a backyard for what we could afford. So we started looking elsewhere, and we looked back east where I grew up, which would have totally been affordable, but I don't think our families would have come visit us too often. We wouldn't have seen a lot of our loved ones very often. So we kind of looked up the West Coast and we loved Seattle. We always had. We kind of wanted to move there years and years ago. So we kind of re-explored that. And since the first time we had looked, in the Seattle area. I had a good friend that lived down there, had since moved to Bellingham. And they were just like, you guys should see Bellingham before you make the decision, So sure enough, we came up to visit spring break in 2014, I think it was, and had some interviews, landed a job in Bellingham, and we moved like 2 months later.
Once you see it,
we fell in love.
Yeah.
Sun came up, and my friend was like, you should go to Boulevard Park while we're working today. That's what we did, and we were like, oh, this is the place.
So you must have come up here in that like 2-month window where there's sun.
Yeah, it was an unusually warm and sunny spring.
Because that's what we see the most of the time. People that move from out of area, they come in the summer, and then they winter it here, and they're like, what in the world just happened?
Not too bad. I mean, I'm from New York, so I lived there 16 years, and I like the seasons. I like the weather. So honestly, it hasn't bothered me. My wife, she gets a little cold in the winter.
When it's 2 degrees, it gets it's a little chilly.
I just go into winter mode. I don't know. It's fine.
Well, you have like enough hot sauce to keep you warm for the entire winter. So
hot sauce is awesome. It keeps you warm, like you said.
Yeah.
And in the summer, it makes you sweat and cools you off. Right?
Perfect. Yeah. This is the main reason that you got into the hot sauce business, isn't it?
Totally.
Yeah. It's a big, deeper mission with it. Yeah.
Yeah. I was laid off in 2018. And I was just like, I'm done being a project manager. I hate it. It didn't jive with my personality.
Yeah.
But it's funny that I say that because my job every day is a project manager.
Yeah.
I'm doing a bunch of different tasks as a business owner, but it's different. I think about it differently.
What would you say, like project manager now versus project manager essentially before?
Yeah.
What's the line in the sand?
As a project manager in the construction industry, you usually have some people breathing down your neck, and they want you to take on other projects, and the customer service starts to slip away.
Yeah.
And I really don't like that. Made me really uncomfortable. A million emails. It becomes really admin heavy. You're just sitting in front of a computer all day. You're not actually on a job site, like making things because there's too many projects.
Right.
Yeah, it was just incredibly stressful on a different level. I got into construction and design, I should say. That's what my master's is in, because I wanted to be a designer. I wanted to be an architect. And I kind of pursued it maybe too late, and it didn't work out. The pay level, the entry jobs as a designer were just as a drafter sitting at a desk, and the pay wasn't great. So that's why I got into project management. When I got laid off from the last job, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start a handyman business, and I'm going to launch the hot sauce company. We're just going to see what happens. And the handyman business took off, and COVID happened.
Oh yeah.
It was booming during COVID because nobody could find anybody to do anything.
Well, there's actually a South Park episode about what happens when handyman. There's a shortage of handyman. Like it is literally it is one of those things where
light bulbs don't get changed.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Who's gonna do it?
Yeah.
I can't.
I loved it. I mean, if I had to go back to doing something again, I'd probably go back to doing that.
I don't think you can now. I mean,
this
is too out of hand. I don't know.
Yeah.
You've created
I can't even
a hot sauce monster.
Think about it. Yeah.
Tell me about that point when you decided to start your own business, even as a handyman and starting getting the hot sauce business rolling. Was it like the most opportune moment in your life with family and like being a father, being a husband, being like all of these layers to your life? Was it like perfect timing?
It seemed like, I don't know if it was perfect. It just sort of like unfolded. I made the decision. I had run my own handyman / like mostly gardening thing briefly in California. So I had worked for myself once before. And then I took a bunch of specialty food classes and small business classes in California before we tried to launch it the first time. So I had already had that knowledge, and it was building. I knew I wanted to be under I wanted to have an LLC. I filed for that. I want to say 6. I hadn't even left that job yet. Actually, I hadn't even been laid off yet. And I started the LLC. The idea was growing in the back of my mind, because I could tell that job wasn't working out. And, it was a matter of time before they just pulled the plug.
Yeah.
First they said, do you want to be a full-time project manager, take on like the bigger jobs? And I said no. And they're like, well, if you're going to say no, we're going to lay you off. And it was fine.
Yeah.
I totally understood.
You knew it was happening.
Yeah. And I got some unemployment, which gave me some time to just kind of figure things out. What was next? I had my resume out to a bunch of places, went on a bunch of interviews, all the while starting to do some handyman work. I had some customers from my previous job that were like, no, we're going to keep you on if you were into that. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And I actually ended up designing some stuff for people. It was I have AutoCAD skills, and so I did a little bit of that. It was just kind of like every couple days I'd sit down like take care of another little task in starting the business. I had to take an acidified food processing class online.
What's that like?
So I did that. It's really interesting. I love science. I was always really into science and biology and chemistry. So it kind of bridges over into the kitchen quite a bit. So like taking this class studying for it was very educational. And I worked in the restaurant industry for 15 years. So it was comfortable for me.
Sure.
It didn't seem foreign by any means, especially since I've been making hot sauce since the early 2000s. I already knew about pH. My products I already got them shelf stable. I already had exploding bottles back in 2005.
Right? Okay. Can you just tell quick, what does that mean? How does a bottle explode?
Shelf stable products at the grocery store, they are all below a certain pH. That's how it keeps bacteria from growing inside of them. If you're not below that, you can get, botulism and a whole host of other things could grow inside that container, and it'll outgas, basically cause the container to explode. If the container's heavy duty enough, it may not explode, but as soon as you remove the cap, it just
exploding on you.
Yeah. It's all, and it kind of it'll ferment in there, even when the fermentation is supposed to be done or never fermented in the first place.
Is it loud? Have you heard a bottle explode?
Oh yeah.
Is it exciting, or is it more terrifying? What's happening?
When we lived in California, I would keep all my hot sauces in this little cabinet kind of in the office, which was right off the kitchen. And my little projects would get made, and then I'd stick them in there, and you'd hear one explode in there every now and then.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
damn. Back to the drawing board.
Once you understand the acidification process, it never happened again.
Yeah.
It was it's pretty simple. And if you just make sure you're in that pH range, you're good.
Yeah.
And you, of course, have to pasteurize the stuff first, too. Even though a lot of my, half of my line are fermented, they're not fresh ferments. So, I could, right after fermentation, I could bottle them and keep them cold and sell them that way.
Yeah.
But I chose not to do that because it's I didn't want to keep everything refrigerated. That's a whole nother level of, and we may release, maybe one day we'll do that in the future, just with a couple. But the other thing is, nobody's really eating hot sauce for the probiotics.
No,
you don't. You eat sauerkraut and that kind of stuff for the probiotics, because you'll eat it in mass quantity.
Just walked into the break room and ate half of Pangea.
Oh yeah.
The curtido one. Have you had that one with the curry and spice? Favorite. That one is I just eat it. I love it.
Yeah, that's where you'll get probiotics, because you're going to eat a considerably more of in quantity. With hot sauce, you're eating a teaspoon. I guess the average person.
Yeah.
But, I eat a lot more hot sauce than that.
Me too. Especially over the last 7 or 8 months, as I've really gotten familiar with your hot sauce. I didn't even know that was a thing. And I didn't, after just getting more familiar with the flavors, I'm like, I enjoy the quantity that I put on here, and too much goes on, I'll just put it on another piece of food.
And I found a couple of the sauces, when we launched the company, we had shaker tops on all of them. Yeah. And then there was a point, because there's 2 or 3 of our sauces, well, there's more than that at this point, but back then there were a few that, they're chunkier, and then the stuff doesn't come out of that shaker top. You can't have the shaker top on. You can get the chunks.
Yeah. You need the chunks.
Definitely.
Yeah. Little burst of flavor. So you took that class, and you really, it sounds like you did probably significantly more research on how to run a business and also really understand your craft than I did before I started a business. So, well, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's an interesting pivot in your work story, your career story, because it sounded like you're showing up, you were clocking in, you're doing the thing. Your eyes didn't light up when you did it.
Oh no.
Maybe they went whatever. No coffee, no amount of coffee could keep you going with that. But then you started doing something that you actually really enjoyed, which you'd been doing for a long time. And then all of a sudden you were really passionate and excited about what you were doing. And did that have any sort of effect or numbing of the hard work of starting a business? Was it just oh, I love doing this, I'm actually really excited about this, all these things are just part of the process? Is that kind of...
I'd say so. When you start a hot sauce company, specifically, and some other types of food companies, I would imagine, anything that would require an acidified food processing license, because it's different than other food processors' licenses. Not everybody makes an acidified product. Sometimes you make a product that's already acidified, so you don't need to take the special class. You don't need to do all these things. But as an acidified food processor, I have 4 or 5 permits and
Certification,
licenses,
yeah,
certifications to do what I do. Between my business license, my LLC, the acidified food processing license, to work at farmers markets in every single county, you need a different kind of permit to give samples out, and and you got to keep up on them. They don't, and the resellers permit, of course, but
yep,
there's a lot of stuff.
yeah,
It's not easy,
yeah.
and you got to maintain them all, and then have a place to make the food, make the product that you're making. And we worked out of a commissary for a long time.
Tell me about that progression of, okay, we need space. It can't just be my kitchen anymore.
With acidified food, it falls under, does not fall under the Cottage Food Act, which means you can't make it in your kitchen. So when I was making it in my kitchen, it was before I started the company. That was just for
friends and
for
family.
friends and family.
Yeah.
That was the other thing. You had to find a kitchen to make your product. And there was pretty much only one in Bellingham back then. And I got in there and I knew I wanted to ferment. So that added another level to it because I needed a temperature controlled room where I could ferment my fermented stuff. When we launched the company, I launched it with a hot sweet sauce called Liquid Sunshine.
Okay, I'm familiar.
Not fermented.
Yeah.
So I just got in there, got established, launched it with the one sauce, and then added the other 3 in the next year, essentially, 2 of which were fermented. So luckily, this little broom closet became available at the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I was able to go in there and ferment. And I put an air conditioner on the wall and a space heater. So in the winter, I would just keep it between 68 and 72, which is ideal for fermenting peppers.
Okay.
Sauerkraut's a little lower. It's a little colder. And I did that I was in there for over 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tried to move probably a year before we actually moved. I was looking and I couldn't find anything. Everything required a massive build out and a lot of money that we didn't have. I couldn't wrap my head around the whole thing. And we started looking for a kitchen that was already built.
Yeah.
And very hard to come by. Even got an agent and a commercial real estate agent.
Yeah.
We were looking around with no luck and I'd all but given up. Actually, we did kind of give up and I was like, okay, I'll resign to the fact that we're just going to be in this place till maybe another year. I don't, and the owners were really kind. They were trying to work with me on bringing some bigger equipment in and like adjusting and figuring out how we were going to make it work. But then another local food producer decided to call it quits and they knew I was looking and they approached me and all of a sudden I had a kitchen. I took over their lease and we were able to move in there and got in. And then a few months later is when we started producing, like after our inspection. And
it seems like the food industry, specifically in Bellingham, but I think in general, has a lot of even thinking about the group that we're in, a lot of that collaborative mentality where you're all competing in some sense, but you're also, that you're better together collaborating to a certain level.
Yeah. I would say that it's pretty good camaraderie.
Yeah.
In the local food business here, we all pretty much support each other in what we're doing. There's not a whole lot of that I can see animosity or hardships between anybody.
It's rare, at least.
No, I lived in Sonoma County, California for quite a while, almost 20 years, and worked in the beer industry there at Russian River Brewing Company. And it reminds me of the beer industry because there's a ton of camaraderie in the beer industry. Everyone is like a win for the beer, for anyone is a win for everyone. You know, especially regional. And people who love beer are very similar to people who fanatics about hot sauce. Because like when you go to you go to a fridge or you walk into a grocery store, you might buy several different kinds of IPA because you like all these different breweries.
Right.
And hot sauce is the same way. You'll buy from all these different companies. You're not just like, I only eat this hot sauce, this one company. We're a little different because we're in the hot sauce industry, but we have probably 200 bottles of hot sauce at my house from all these different companies. But we all trade. Every time I see these other companies, we're like, and
they're all good and they're all different and good. And and I'm sure it's nice that you all get ideas from each other, I'm sure too. And tell me about hot sauce fanatics. And I want to do a quick taste test.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to start with the Wild Child. This is like probably the most mellow.
Most mild one we make.
And this is like
the gateway sauce.
And just, this is the gateway sauce. And it was our gateway sauce, by the way, because when I saw the heat meter, I was a little bit like timid on the hotter stuff. But once I had this, then it like introed me and I was like, then I tested the next one out. Then I was like, okay, let's go.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
This is just my assessment. And then I want you to laugh at me or maybe will agree with me. But this was like an incredibly complex, good version of buffalo sauce. Like I felt like it was a really tangy, not too spicy,
Mm-hmm.
And it was like we were dumping it on like breakfast and like, oh, let's try it on dinner. Let's try it on this. But anyways,
it's an everything sauce. It's super versatile. Red Fresno based garlic, onion, and there's a ton of red bell pepper in there. That's what mellows out the Fresnos, because Fresnos can get intense.
Since you've never had this before, do you want to try some of this?
Sure.
It's like zesty right off the bat.
Yeah.
And you said Fresnos?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
Fresno peppers.
It's the gateway.
Yeah, so I made that sauce to get my kids into hot sauce. That was our number 4 sauce. It was based on an old recipe, but the old recipe I used Thai chilies. It was considerably hotter, so I was like, well,
Yes,
I
they
want to make
are.
a red sauce. And well, interestingly enough, this sauce and a sauce I've come out with in the last year called Acid Ball are very similar, but this sauce, the heat comes from Fresno's. Acid Ball comes from the red Savina habanero. It's considerably hotter.
Yes.
There's a lot of red bell pepper in Wild Child, and there's a very little bit of red bell pepper in Acid Ball. Excuse me. So they're very similar. They both kind of came from that old red sauce that we used to make with the Thai chilies. But I wanted to make a red sauce that was versatile because we didn't have a red one yet, and I wanted to make it so my kids would get into hot sauce, and my parents kept asking me to make something that they could eat.
So no pressure to your kids, but like they're hooked on hot sauce now.
Oh yeah, our 2 oldest kids they eat everything. They eat all the hottest ones. They'll at least try them. They're not afraid. My daughter is still right around Wild Child. She's 11. She's still kind of.
I mean, you could stay at the gateway drug for your whole life, if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
Or you can get a little bit more adventurous.
Yeah.
So let's do one more. Tell us a little bit more about the Stellar Fuzz.
So Stellar Fuzz, also based on one of our oldest recipes. I had made a habanero ginger sauce in the early 2000s, and I love the combo of ginger and habanero. It's always been a favorite. So back in the old days, that was actually a fermented sauce, but Stellar Fuzz is not a fermented sauce.
Oh, man.
So the first 4, Wild Child, Terra Luna, Stellar Fuzz, Liquid Sunshine, 2 of them are fermented, 2 of them are not. I knew that we needed some sauces that I could just make the next day if we ran out. The fermented ones you can't just make the next day.
How long does that process take then?
About a month. Yeah, 3 weeks to a month. Yeah, Stellar Fuzz is now our number 1 selling sauce,
but also still manageable. Like it's like, would you say it's 1 step up from this?
2 steps.
2 steps. Yeah, see, I'm not as dialed with my palate, so 2 steps.
It's in our range because I've got a couple medium level heat ones between Wild Child and Stellar Fuzz.
Okay,
Stellar Fuzz on our heat scale says hot, which to me is like not outrageous. It's just kind of a middle of the road.
It's good heat.
Hot sauce.
I still feel like I can ask questions and finish up this conversation.
Easily accessible.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll get to a point where I'm going to be like, okay, just cut, break. So tell me about these fanatics, the hot sauce people. I know it ranges from, the person that's been eating Tabasco for their whole life.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And then there's the person that is just understands the hot sauce world at a higher level.
Yeah.
Tell me about those people.
Big time. It does range. So coming from the beer industry I worked in the beer industry for about 6 years. And even after I worked in it, I still pretty immersed because I love craft beer. So many similarities. So when you go to a beer fest, you see the fanatics. Or if you work in a brewery, there's your neighborhood people that come in. They come in because they love your beer. You're the neighborhood bar or brewery. And then there's the ones who know that brewery makes some extra special stuff and they love that it's in their town.
The limited
blah, blah,
bottles
blah.
And stuff.
Then there's the people who travel across the country to go to that brewery. And that's when we're getting into fanatic status. And it's the same with hot sauce. So I would get emails from them sometimes. And I'm a part of some Facebook groups that are hot sauce based groups, some that are more like about they make their own hot sauce, and then some that are like just about commercial hot sauce. And you get your people who just like they post a picture, they went to like grocery outlet and like, oh my gosh, they have all of like the El Yucateco sauces.
Yeah.
And this guy like, they're like $3 each and like they're way into El Yucateco. And
the only person that got the deal was that person. They're like, oh yeah, they have it. And then
everyone, my old favorites are like Tapatio and Cholula.
Yep.
Because like in the 90s, that's what I was putting on my breakfast.
Solid.
Yeah. You go to a breakfast place and that's all.
Not much spice though.
Yeah. I don't care for Tabasco. It's a vinegar forward sauce and I don't care for vinegar forward sauces.
Cholula is probably one of my favorite, like
great.
Easy kind of Miller Light of my
totally.
Yeah.
You could totally
or Modelo. We could call it Modelo.
Yeah. So like when you walk into a breakfast joint, you're like, oh gosh, I hope they don't have Tabasco. And then you're like, oh, they have Cholula.
Yeah.
All right, that'll work. But then you get into like bringing your own hot sauce.
Yeah.
It's like when you started,
would you say you're carrying at all times? Do you have a concealed
I have
hot sauce
usually in my vehicle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
Not in the dead of winter because it'll freeze.
Yeah,
And the hottest times during the summer, I might not have it. I might not keep it in my truck anymore either. But I also have a lot of markets that are going on in the summertime, like
Yep.
a couple of 2-3 week. So there's often hot sauce in my vehicle.
yeah,
Once we started doing major hot sauce events like the Portland Hot Sauce Expo, the New York City Hot Sauce Expo, Chicago, all these different events, that's where you really are face to face with like the fanatics.
Yeah.
And it's awesome because like when I go to those events, I'm like, oh my gosh, these are my people.
yeah, yeah.
I feel like the people here in Bellingham in the local food industry, all the people that I know at the farmers market, they are definitely my people.
Yep.
Like, and I am like so happy owning this hot sauce company and doing what I do now because it has so many different facets that I love. Like
Yeah.
there's so many, my job is different every day. And then when I go to the markets, like we're surrounded by all these other food vendors and we trade.
Yep.
And it's amazing. It's like a really neat community. But then when you go to the hot sauce centric events,
Yeah.
it's totally different.
It's
So
like your people
all
within your
trade.
people.
Yeah. We all trade as well. But then we're all just like, it's a good time.
And then there's like
And then
black
there's-
market hot sauce like this that you guys trade
Yeah.
behind doors. And
That's right.
This is just called black market bottle. What do we call it?
It's a super hot green experiment.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
maybe you'll know about it in the future.
Yeah.
Maybe you won't.
We
Maybe you'll
hope-
eat it.
We do. We hope to release that in the fall.
Cool. Well,
Yeah. So we brought a bottle of it. Yeah.
we'll all be enjoying it. But so you've got this like kind of microcosm of your people, which is this really cool, very collaborative community. And you go to the hot sauce of the big old events, the trade shows, and you meet other people who are not just in craft food and craft business, but they're doing exactly what you're doing, but but also very different. Same and different.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And they go around tasting everything. And the way these events work is people come in. There's not a whole lot of purchases in the first few hours. People are just going booth to booth tasting. And they're taking pictures of bottles that they like so they don't forget, or they're taking notes. And then they come back around after lunch, and that's when they start buying and tasting again. But that's when the purchases start happening. And it's pretty typical of these events. We've done 4 or 5 of them now, and that's how it goes, which is it's really neat,
Yeah.
you know. And then I would say, you know, there's different levels of fanatics. There's the ones who are just after the face melters.
Yeah.
You know, that's what they want. They want the endorphin rush.
Yeah.
And there's the people who are, and this is where most people lie, is in the sweet spot, like kind of around Stellar Fuzz level.
Yep.
That is where most people's comfort range is. And I knew that having just worked at farmers markets, but once I started doing the big hot sauce events, we found it to be true there too. It's very interesting. Like just to be
Most of them are in that range.
Yeah, because
Interesting.
our first major hot sauce event, we only had one on the hotter end. We had Seeing Stars, and it's an accessible Carolina Reaper sauce. It's
What does that mean? Accessible? Does that mean you're not? It's not a face melter.
It's not a face melter. My goal with that sauce was to make a Reaper sauce that you could actually taste the flavor of the Reaper. Because if you cut a Carolina Reaper open and you get your nose real close and just get a nice whiff, it smells like a bowl of fruit. It smells like, to me, it smells like plums and cherries. Like,
Interesting.
it's amazing. Okay. It's one of the most, I mean, the red habanero is my favorite, the red Savina habanero. The Reaper was born from the red Savina habanero and the ghost pepper. There was quite a few generations of cross-pollinating until the gene became stable, and Ed Curry created the Reaper. Anyway, he did an amazing job because it's a wonderful pepper. I wanted to make a sauce with it that people could actually eat because most people could never even touch that pepper. I've eaten the pepper. I've taken, not a whole one, but I've taken chunks of it and just eaten it because I wanted to know what the flavor was. And it
lights you up.
Yeah, it lights you up. I can taste it, but most people I don't think can at that point.
Until I had this, I don't think I lie in your average Joe category where I love hot sauce. But the thing that was so unique about this hot sauce, and I actually had this for the first time yesterday at Structures.
Oh, okay.
And I've had all the main pack, right? And I was like, oh, this tastes like I can feel my face. This tastes like the thing that I think it's supposed to taste like.
Yeah.
And I've never had that experience. I've had like a hot wing and I've just been like snot coming out of my nose and tears and like my heart's beating really fast. I'm like, I think this is it. I think this is the moment where I'm starting to see the light or whatever, you know, and this is it. I'm done. You found the fruit flavors that you had smelled.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you do that?
I started experimenting with that recipe maybe a full year before we released the sauce. Well, definitely a full year before we released the sauce, but there were probably 4 to 6 test batches and little tweaks made to it. To me, it reminded me of a red plum. We have a plum tree in our front yard, so I was like, I'm going to combine the Reaper with plums. And I ended up throwing some umeboshi vinegar in there, which is a fermented plum vinegar.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt I was able to pull the flavor. I was able to highlight it with the help of the plums, but I didn't want to make it a super fruit forward sauce. So the plums are really only in there as like a supporting cast member.
Makes sense.
Yeah, they're in the background, but they help draw out the flavor of the Reaper.
They're like in the back going ba 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 boom.
That's right.
Right, and then the Reaper's singing the song. Yeah,
totally. That's how I try to do fruit in all of our sauces. We maybe have 4 or 5 sauces with fruit in them, and it's always kind of in the background.
Hey everyone, it's Leo. The Building Bellingham podcast is one of our team's community projects, and I want to introduce you to the other. Live Bellingham Now is a community platform showcasing up-and-coming businesses, local nonprofits, and events happening in town. You can get all of the updates on Facebook and Instagram. All right, back to the show. Let's shift a little bit to, we've been talking science and I love it. We haven't gotten so far down the science rabbit hole, but like I'd love to talk about, because you're running a business and you're doing what you're passionate about. Tell me about, when you're creating something, but then it's also, you're creating it because you're now scaling it to have a business. Tell me about that tipping point where you're like, this is a feasible business and it's starting to crush it and it's starting to do what I set out for it to do.
Almost 2 years ago, it was probably May, June, about 2 years ago, just a little before we won that award, because that award came in late September, as the farmers markets were taking off and our wholesale accounts had gotten to a point where it was actually regular money was coming in from wholesale.
And this is a lot of like local restaurants, or is this
all the way from here to Seattle?
Yeah, cool. Okay.
Maybe at that point, I think there was a couple in California, one in Oregon, but that was about it. Yeah. And we had gotten with the Puget Sound Food Hub, so they helped quite a bit with that. They're a local distributor. Yep. They're awesome. And so there were like regular checks coming in from all the wholesale stuff, plus the markets. And it became like, oh, this is actually money I can count on. It wasn't just, it seemed seemingly random before that. I tapered off on the handyman stuff and I kept just a few clients and I kept a couple bigger jobs and just like things I really wanted to do. Mm-hmm. Most of my customers they all knew that I had the hot sauce thing going on. So that I wasn't always like, I might not necessarily be at their house every day. If I was working on something big, it might be like, I'll be here Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this week. And then we're making sauce on Monday. And then I got this other thing. I'm doing deliveries on Friday or whatever. So it went like that till close to the holidays that same year. And we won the award. The website blew up. All of a sudden, our online orders became something I could depend on. Yeah. And before it was just, it was like a few here, a few there.
Right.
It was neat when it would happen. Oh, somebody from Massachusetts ordered hot sauce. I wonder how they found out.
I have time to send them a card or something,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. So now, or at that point, I want to say is when we finished up any other jobs I had as a handyman, and just went down to about 2 customers and it went full hot sauce.
Yeah.
So
it naturally happened.
And that was 18 months ago.
Yeah.
But it seems like it was longer, but it wasn't. There's so many things have happened in those 18 months.
This is the tip of the iceberg right now, what we're talking about. And the cool part about your journey is that it didn't start when the award happened. It started so long ago. Yeah. With your passion for it. For scale. So I can understand from a wholesale side, I'm sure, like from what I understand about beer, and maybe there's a parallel to this, like the margins on wholesale are smaller, but it's a bigger amount. It's a volume play and like an omnipresence or awareness play of like getting it more places. And the hope is that the people that go to the restaurant also then end up at some point maybe buying it as well.
Yeah.
So how many at the beginning and now, like how many bottles, or I don't know the different scale of like vats of hot sauce how many bottles were you putting out at the beginning, and like how has that grown and how has that changed?
Oh, well, we used to make when we started, when I started the company, I keep saying we because my wife and I do work together. She has a full-time job, but she is in charge of shipping now. So she pretty much handles all the online orders. in her free time.
Yeah.
It's not really free time.
It's time.
It's time.
Yeah.
And our kids help out. And then we do have like my parents have come and helped out, and my mother-in-law, like we'll have like labeling nights. And we haven't had labeling nights in a while because I've been having my nephew come in now, and he's like my first official employee.
Nice.
He comes in maybe once or twice a week, and we make sauce, we label it the same day. It's all done. It goes in the boxes, gets taped up, and it's like done.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic because it used to be like cases were sitting around. Oh, we got to label all those, 60 cases over there, blah, blah, blah. But when I started, it was 100% just me. There was no help. And I would go in, I had a 10-gallon pot. It was a brewer's pot, and I would cook 8 gallons of sauce. Just leave a couple inches at the top so it doesn't, boil over and all that stuff. So 8-gallon sauce, it would be 12 to 16 cases, something like that. And it was fine. It wasn't like flying off the shelves or anything yet. And then I ditched that pot, went to a 20-gallon pot, and then rolled with that for maybe till early 2022. And then by the time we won the award, I was making sauce in the kettle at the old commissary. That was a 40-gallon kettle. So
The big boy.
we would do like 30 gallons, so 20 to 30 gallons in that thing. And then now we are in our own kitchen, and we have a 60-gallon kettle, and I wouldn't do more than 50 or so gallons in it. And we've done 50 a few times now.
It's a lot of sauce.
Yeah, it's getting to about 100 cases of sauce at a time in one batch. And we made that much Seeing Stars at the beginning of December, and I had to do it again at the beginning of January. So we blew through it through the holidays.
Yeah.
It went, that was a big deal for me. That was like, I just made that.
This is happening. Yeah.
And we have, coming out of harvest time is when we have the most variety too. So we have about 14 sauces available at the moment, or maybe 15. I think 15 available right now, and we'll hit 16 when we release Acid Ball in April.
Mm-hmm.
When that many sauces are in rotation, it's like, we're making 2 batches of sauce a week.
Yeah.
And in years previous, like I wouldn't make sauce like all of January and February. There wouldn't be, maybe depending on how Christmas hit us. But in those, prior to winning the awards, it wasn't, we didn't have national notoriety yet or global for that matter. But now it's a lot of cases of hot sauce,
Yeah.
I order a pallet of glass and we make 3 batches and the pallet's gone.
Yeah.
It used to be like I'd order a pallet of glass and be like, oh my gosh, that's going to last 6 months.
Yeah.
No way.
You've got different problems.
It's like a month.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's different. And the labels, the way I used to order labels, it was like I would order maybe 1,000 at a time if each one, and I'd get a couple batches out of each. 1,000 labels is like maybe just a little bit more than one batch now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're
Saddle
making
up.
quite a bit more. Yeah, I mean, our revenue it doubled in 2023 from the previous year, and the previous year from that to the previous year, it's doubled each year.
That's what it's supposed to do.
Yeah,
I think that's the point,
it's
right?
Pretty amazing.
Tell me a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about this award. This is a big deal. How did this come about? Did someone like slip your name in the box, or did you have?
Oh, for Seeing Stars? No, we entered our sauces. It was the second time we'd enter our sauces to the New York City Hot Sauce Expo. That's where the Screaming Mimis happen, and they're blind tasting. And I did it myself. That is, entered the sauce, and I was in the kitchen making sauce that day when I found out. It was a few days after my birthday, because the expo happened on September 24th, which was my birthday that year. So I was very well aware that and I didn't hear anything.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I guess I didn't win. I was in the kitchen making Stellar Fuzz. And I look at my emails, as I periodically do throughout the day, because just, wanting to see if people have responded to certain things. So like I was waiting for the sauce to boil and all that stuff. And I glanced at my email, and there was an email from Doug of Spotted Owl Farm saying, congratulations on winning the Grand World Champion Award. And I'd never received an email from Doug before. So I was like, who's Doug? Like, he must have the wrong person.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not, it must be somebody else. I don't even know what I thought. So I emailed him back, and I'm like, what?
Just one word?
What
Just
are you talking about? Huh?
Huh?
And he's like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't, is this for real? Like I didn't see the award. First I searched for the list of winners.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't even find the list of winners. Usually, like it gets emailed out by Steve, who hosts the expo, and I'm like, huh. And he's like, no, it took him a while to tally everything up. So some of the awards were announced day of, and they didn't announce like I don't know, maybe half of them until a few days after. So then I started getting people started messaging me on Instagram and Facebook. I'd get all these congratulations, and then it hit me. I actually won the award.
You're still trying to figure out who Doug is. You're like,
yeah,
who is Doug? And
was,
is he like
yeah,
a CIA agent?
No,
Is he like, am I producing too much
like,
sauce? Or
yeah, and then he offered. He's like, hey, if you need any help making, if you need more peppers grown for your next year, Doug's a great guy.
Yeah.
Super nice. We've met a couple times now and had conversations. And
you confirmed his name
actually
is
bought
Doug?
peppers from him this past year.
You confirmed his name is Doug?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You're Doug. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
I was like, how am I going to finish making this batch of sauce? I'm shaking.
Yeah.
I got through it, and it was just nuts. It was kind of a blur after that because then the website blew up, and like maybe the next day or the day after that, when the news broke, I was like, every time somebody buys something on Shopify, which is who hosts our website now, back then it was GoDaddy. Either way, we would get a little ding or like a ka-ching sound on our phone, and it was just like I woke up one morning and the East Coast had already been up for like 3 hours, right? And there was all these orders, and they were from the East Coast first.
Ding, ding, ding.
And I was like,
ding.
I'm like, we had 15 orders this morning. I'm like, that's unusual, and then it just kept, I refreshed my phone and it was like 10 more orders. I'm like, what's happening here? Yeah. It went like that for like 2 weeks. It was nuts. We sold out of pretty much everything. And I was making sauce like 5 days a week just to catch back up because the holidays were like right around the corner.
Yeah.
This all went down.
Right before you, probably a really busy time.
Yeah. We were like in the thick of like harvest,
What a wild experience.
It was very wild. And it's just been more, it gave me the confidence, honestly, to enter into more awards.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't really done a whole lot at that point. And since then, I think we have a total of 11 awards now. We won them all in the last 18 months.
It's amazing.
Yeah. For about, like Stellar Fuzz has 3 awards. Chili Libre has 1. Piano de Stella has 1. Wild Child doesn't have anything yet, but Terra Luna just won a first place at the Screaming Mimis.
Yeah.
This past one, we were actually there for that. That was awesome, walking up on stage and accepting that. It's the first time that's ever
when
happened.
you know you won it, it's good. Then you can be there.
Yeah, that's
amazing. Helpful, right? For like accommodations and flights.
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. And then Erin won a couple of awards.
Yep.
And I texted her. I was like, you just won a couple of awards,
Yep.
And she wouldn't have heard otherwise for a while. So it was neat. It was really neat being there.
I'm going to give the Wild Child the Building Bellingham Award. So you now have 12 awards. It's a great gateway drug if you're looking. Yeah, but it's a real prestigious award. I mean, I created it right now. And so you now have 12 awards.
One of the first ones, though.
Yeah, you're the first ones. Yeah, that's correct. It's crazy. There's these little nuanced moments where you're just head down, you're doing the thing, it's scaling. Your expectations are that you enjoy what you do and you're fulfilling the orders and you're doing the thing. And then you take a chance. Tell me about taking a chance. I mean, you took a chance when it wasn't a huge downside. You wouldn't have won the award, but you took a chance and you're like, I think this is really good. I think the people I know really like it.
Yeah.
Which category were you in, by the way?
For Seeing Stars?
Well, yeah.
It was the Carolina Reaper category. It won first place in the Reaper category. Ooh, and then, so it was 2 awards. It won the first place Reaper category. And then overall, for all of our entries, you get tallied. They give you points for everything you've entered. So we entered maybe 6 or 8 sauces. The Reaper one weighs heavy.
Yeah.
That's a heavy award.
It's a big deal. Yeah.
So we were given the Grand World Champion title on top of winning the first place award. And that's like awesome. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
It's a big deal.
I pinched myself for weeks. I was like, is this happening?
Yeah.
Like, when we appeared in press releases across the country, my cousins in New York were texting me like, you're in my news feed.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, what? Like, that's crazy. I'm like, I think it's because their phone was listening to them.
Yeah.
And knows
the algorithm or
they must have said my cousin something, hot sauce.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it showed them the article. Because we weren't like in the Times, but we were in our local paper, and the article, like, however it works in Google, like the article was pulled and like came up in their Google feed.
It's a big deal.
It's wild.
Yeah, that's the Google machine is a big thing.
Oh, it's nuts. It really is. Yeah.
Now that has happened, and it's almost felt like hit that, and then it just kind of hockey sticked, right? Tell me a little bit more about like for people that are local, for people that are looking to find your sauce, it sounds like online is one of the best places to find it, or you can, find it other like local retailers that have the gift packs, and you can test it at the farmer's market, or just go to like a number of different local restaurants. I mean, you're everywhere.
The co-op stores here in town.
Yep.
Hagen, they carry like the flagship kind of, sauces. Hagen also carries Sing Stars, and now both co-op stores here in town have Super Fuzz, while Stellar Fuzz is not available. Stellar Fuzz will be back in April.
Okay.
Then that's when the contract with Heatonist is over, and then I'll be able to sell it again. But also Elizabeth Station locally carries the largest selection of our sauces.
Yep.
They carry every single one of them, except for Super Fuzz. They don't have Super Fuzz at the moment. Structures has our sauces. They serve them on some of their food.
Yep.
Sweet as Waffles.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. The boys.
Yep. Those guys are awesome. Those guys were my. They cheered me on from the very beginning. Those two guys. They're awesome.
Yeah. Nate and Graham are rad.
Love them. Two of my favorite local business owners.
Yes.
Big time. All the way up to Blaine. Hill Chevron and Blaine carries quite a good selection of Funkies. And it moves really well there, too. We get the Canadians coming down from up north. And I don't know if you've ever been into Hill Chevron, but it is not your typical gas station.
Man.
They have a massive gift shop, all kinds of good local goods.
Is that in Blaine, downtown Blaine?
Yeah, it's right on Main Street.
I spent a lot of time gassing my car up because I drive a lot of places. So, yes, I have gassed, but I haven't.
Yeah, it's a fantastic shop.
Yeah.
And the people that run it are really awesome. Super friendly. Ferndale Mini Mart, Ferndale, all the way down to Drizzle, of course, in Fairhaven.
Yep.
And then south of here, Craft Stove in Mount Vernon. They've got a pretty awesome selection of Funkies. The co-op in Mount Vernon.
Yep. Another great co-op down there.
I love that co-op. Yeah. Actually, I'd say all the co-ops all the way to Olympia. And that's all through the Puget Sound Food Hub. They help me out with that.
They're fantastic.
Out into the islands too. We're on Lopez Island, San Juan Island, Orcas Island. And then in Seattle, we're in all the PCC stores now. Yeah. PCC Market. Made in Washington stores. In Portland, we're at World Foods. We got an account in San Diego. We got one in Santa Rosa. We've got Utah, Missouri, Colorado, New York, Massachusetts, Florida. It's great. And I ship directly to most of those accounts that are kind of far off. I don't have a huge distributor, like a national distributor or anything just yet. But in this last year, we bought Trilby's, and Trilby's came with a distributor, like a big distributor.
Yep.
So we're kind of working some things out with them right now. And we're also rebranding Trilby's. And that relaunch will happen in pieces. All of the spice blends will be re-released next week with all brand new labels.
Barbecue.
Totally new look. And then the sauce, probably about a month out still.
Yeah.
It's in the co-packer's hands. We decided to have a co-packer make the Trilby's products just because I don't have room in my production schedule. It's not my baby like Funky's is. And it was just easy. There's not like fresh ingredients in the barbecue sauce. It's a different animal.
Different world. Yeah.
So it was easy just to have a co-packer make it.
Totally.
It just made sense. So that's what's happening. So I'm kind of, we're about to put our PO in with the co-packer, and then it's about a month out before the sauce gets made. But
well, if you need a taster, I mean, totally.
Sure.
You just hit me up and I'll be there. So before we end with I want to sample the Seeing Stars. Tell me about Hot Ones. That's a really awesome show. That's something I've been watching, which is it's hilarious and it's incredibly entertaining. How did that all happen? How did Hot Ones come to be?
So Hot Ones it's the thing that every hot sauce company wants to be on.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know anyone that wouldn't want to be on that show because the benefits are massive. I mean, it's like winning an award.
Yeah.
Maybe even better because of because of its reach.
Right. We have celebrities being interviewed on there, and then they're eating your hot sauce. It's entertaining. It's got all these different.
It's YouTube TV. It streams globally.
Yeah.
And people they watch it all over the place. The show's been on for about 8 or 9 years, and they do about 2 or 3 seasons a year. So this is their 23rd season. I had reached out to them maybe 2 years ago, sent them some sauce, never heard anything. I figured it's got to be crazy how much sauce gets sent to them.
Yeah.
Right. And I know it is now for sure. So then there was an email back, and then it was like, oh yeah, great, you sent us sauce. We'll let you know when we try it. And didn't hear anything. 6 months. I email them back, no answer. Email again, maybe get like another short answer back. Oh, it's probably in the room with all the other sauce.
You're like, oh great, yeah,
we'll find
cool,
it.
yeah.
And then somebody emailed me back, and they're like, they actually went to my website, and they were like, your sauce is like, and at that point we had about 12, and Tony, our artist, had designed all the labels. So we finally had our branding dialed in, everything. And they were like, your packaging looks amazing. Please send us 1 bottle of each that you have to offer. So I sent them about a case of sauce and got confirmation that they received it. But then again, it was like crickets.
Yeah.
And then, oh yeah, we'll get to it. So after we won the award, we got a free booth at all the hot sauce expos across the country, all 4 that this company runs. So I'm like, well, when we go to New York, we're gonna meet them. We're gonna do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm gonna go find these guys.
Yeah.
So that was my mission, and I knew they would probably be at the expo anyway. So they
Right.
did. Sure enough, there were 2 booths down from us. So my wife and I, Rachel, and I went over and met them, and it was them. That was the guys that I met the guy who I sent the sauce to, and he was like, "Oh yeah." He knew who I was.
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, your sauces are awesome. I was hoping to talk to you like this weekend because I knew you're going to be here." And I was like, "What?" Like,
You're like, me too.
oh,
Yeah.
this
No
is
way.
fantastic. Great. You actually tasted the sauces. So like that was already like something that he didn't expect. So then we didn't have a chance to catch up at the expo. So the next day we were in Brooklyn, which is where I was born, and my dad was with us. So he was like, "I want to show you guys some stuff from Brooklyn." And then drove up to the Heatonist. Their shop is in Williamsburg in Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of far north. It's on the northern end of Brooklyn, away from the things that we were doing. So my dad was like, "Why are we driving all the way up here?" And I'm like, "No, we have to do this.
Yeah,
like,
just,
you don't know.
Come on, just get in the car.
It's going to happen." And I had told my parents what Hot Ones is, and they were just like, what? And didn't quite understand what the impact the show has. So anyway, we drove up there, popped in, dropped off a few more bottles, chatted with the guy at the register, the clerk that was helping us. This is a really small shop, really charming and nice and friendly. He knew who we were. He was like, "Oh yeah, I tasted your sauces that you sent. Yeah. And my favorite's Stellar Fuzz," I think he said. And I was like, "Oh, okay." So like the next day we were driving out to Massachusetts to go to my cousin's place out there. I got a phone call from them, and they said they wanted to set up a video conference call with me. And when we were at the expo, I was chatting with one of the hot sauce makers next to us, and they were like, "Oh," and they had been on Hot Ones already. And they were like, "When they call you for the conference call, that's when you know it's going to happen." So when they said conference call, I was like, "Oh my God.
A conference call, not a normal phone
it's
call."
Happening. Yeah. So, and it did. We got home. We were home for a day and back here in Bellingham. And then I had the conference call. They offered Hot Ones. They said they want Stellar Fuzz because they have the number 3 spot open. And they really thought Stellar Fuzz would be perfect in that spot.
Yep.
And the first batch of sauce they wanted was like in 6 weeks. It was just, the time frame was crazy.
Yeah.
I had the help of a co-packer, this guy who runs a hot sauce. He runs his own hot sauce company, but he co-packs, and he's down in Tacoma. And he had helped me do a Fuego box. He had helped me with a huge order for Fuego box about a year prior with that same sauce. So they'd already been through the motions with it. They already knew how to make it.
And they cranked it.
He was like, "We'll make it happen for you." He's like, "We're going to move some stuff around your schedule, so we'll get it. We'll make it happen." I wouldn't have been able to do it without him. Wouldn't have been able to hit the date. That's how it all went down. And then, we had to keep our mouths shut.
Yep.
We couldn't say a word till they did a few weeks ago.
You're bursting at the seams. You're like, "This is the greatest."
Yeah. I mean, I think only 5 people knew. We just had to keep it like, I didn't tell certain friends. I didn't tell certain, so I was like, I don't know, man. Like, cause they, you never know if they think they're just being secretive about it and they tell one person, but then that person they tell, like, I don't know, says something on social media, forget it.
Well, now 200 million listeners that listen to our podcast, they know now.
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding. Let's finish off with just doing a little taste of this. All right, let's do some ghost pepper here. This is the
Reaper.
Ghost Reaper.
Just Reaper.
Well, 3rd time's a charm. I got it right the 3rd time. Oh man, that's like, is that a 5 or a 6 on spice? Like a 6?
It's probably a 6.
Yeah.
Sure. Out of 10.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's scale is subjective.
Yeah.
The scale we have on our bottles, this is listed as ridiculously hot, which for most people,
it is.
It's about right. That's like my comfort, my everyday comfort level is around that level of heat.
Yeah.
I use that.
I would say it's like just one notch above like my everyday comfort level.
Yeah.
But like for a special occasion, I'm good with it.
Yeah. And I like to push it further than that sometimes. Like, and if you have a sandwich, if you're going to eat a breakfast sandwich and you take the top off, it's like sometimes we'll just do like a few shakes and then take another sauce, a few shakes on every bite.
Yeah.
So you're mixing it up. But sometimes I'll just take a sandwich or whatever I'm eating for breakfast and I'll just I'll just cover it or like I'll coat the whole top and then put the top back on the sandwich. And that's when you get the build.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I feel it.
And you're like, oh, like one taste of that sauce, like, okay. But you get 3-4 bites into it and you're like, oh, now my whole mouth is like
now I'm sweating.
Now
and,
you might start to get the endorphin rush.
Yeah, I'm feeling
and
it a
I
little
love,
bit.
That's great.
It's a good. Well, on that note,
Yeah.
thanks for coming in and sharing your story on episode 6 of season 5.
Thanks for having me. I really
what a good
appreciate
time.
it. Yeah.
Thanks for coming on the show and sharing your story.
Yeah. Thanks for
what a
having
journey.
me. Yeah.
It's not over yet.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not over.
Yeah.
No way.
Boom.
Just the beginning.
Building Bellingham is a community podcast exploring leadership, challenges, failure, and mindset with entrepreneurs right here in Whatcom County, Washington. You can be the first to hear about upcoming guests by subscribing to the Building Bellingham Facebook or Instagram pages, as well as the Building Bellingham YouTube channel. This episode was produced and edited by Tiffany Holden. Our videography is done by Cooper Hansley. Community projects are by Taylor Beal. To learn more about the team behind the podcast and to download our media kit, check out our website at www.livebellinghamnow.com or search Cohen Group NW on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or LinkedIn. From the whole Building Bellingham podcast team, thank you for listening.